Buongiorno, buon pomeriggio, e buonasera, Lazio world. Welcome to your instant reaction pod. I'm your host, Sean McIntosh, joined by my co host, Caleb Adams, here to review, react on Lazio versus Atalanta. A 1-1 result. It's a few minutes after the final whistle. Not a ton of time to digest. We always go instant reaction, but Caleb, as I was setting everything up for this pod, just kind of digesting things, my reaction is probably starting to simmer a little bit. How you feeling?
Yeah, I think a lot of mixed emotions. I think it is sort of a weird result, but ultimately, I think one we can be proud of and look to build on from into the new year.
Yeah. Let's hope for a little bit of therapy then. Maybe the longer we talk this out, the better we'll feel about things. That's what I'm hoping for. So let's jump into this, and we'll start where we always start, the starting 11. Nuno Tavares at left back. Right back sees Marusic. Your center back pairing is Gila and Romagnoli. Thank the Lord they are back. Rovella, Guendouzi, Dele Bashiru manning the middle in a 4-3-3. Chauna getting the nod with Tati and Zaccagni. Provedel, of course, as your starting goalkeeper. This one gets off to a fairly quick start, particularly for Lazio. The 11th minute, Chauna with a pretty nice run and through ball to Tati, who has two shots, two saves, particularly brilliant save on his follow-up. It is that second shot where Carnesecchi makes a toe-poking save, outstretched. Then the ball eventually finds its way to Guendouzi, who takes a fantastic strike from distance, only to see the ball bash the crossbar. A bit unlucky. There's a couple tense moments in the first 25 or so minutes where Chauna fails to clear the ball on a corner. But for the most part, Lazio seems to be the one on the front foot, owning possession. 28th minute, we see a wonderful ball over the top by Rovella, and sees Dele Bashiru with a wonderful strike, finishes it off 1-0 Lazio. And then a little bit of a back and forth, but you start to see Atalanta feel themselves into it, grow into this match. Later and later, it continues to go on. You start to fear and worry that Lazio is not going to have enough to get through to the finish line. 75th minute, Pellegrini with a double save off the line. And then we've got maybe one of the most regretful moments of the match. 78th minute, Dia has a chance that really has a couple options to make. I'd say three options. He's got a chance to take a crack at it from where he has it. He has a chance to maybe take a couple additional steps, or as an opportunity to lay the ball off to Tati, and he takes the wrong choice, taking a shot that goes right to Carnesecchi for an easy save. And in the 88th minute, we see you got to give credit. Hate to do it, but Zaniolo with the touch of the ball that just sees its way past the entire Lazio defense, particularly Marusic in that moment, for Lookman to find himself on the end of a ball. Nice pass. It's 1-1. Finishes it off with a little bit of a flurry from Atalanta. We hold on. Caleb, give me your 3 words or less to describe this match.
Yeah, my 3 words are goals change games. And this goes on both a positive front and a negative one in this particular match. The last major game we had here against Inter, we were the better side for 35 minutes, right? The difference between that game and this one was we actually scored off of that really strong start. We scored in the 27th minute by way of Dele Bashiru, who has, I would love to talk more about here in the future here on the episode. But I think that in itself is, I mean, you can just play your game when you're doing that early on, right? Against Inter, we started strong. They scored against us. Boom, our whole game plan's out the door, and then we just crack. In this match, I love that we got that goal. It was very clear Lazio had the momentum. We scored with that momentum, which is massively important. But on the other side of that, we didn't score another, right? And against a team like Atalanta, and teams like Inter, all these teams that we're facing in the top four, frankly, we need to put these games away. And how do you do that? Is by goals. Goals change games. It determines how you defend. It determines the buffer and the stress the players have to go under, right? If we're defending a 2-0 lead in the last, 35 minutes or in the last half, right? It's a different game, a different approach, especially when we have lack of depth. But happy that we were able to actually score off the momentum against the best team in the league. Okay, that's a huge W. But also disappointed that we weren't able to get that second that I think would have sealed the match.
Yeah, it's honestly spot on. You think about so many times this season where we have failed to capitalize on an opportunity, and it bites us. It changes the complexion, and I mean, this game is all about scoring goals. As I sit here and was very, very upset at how that finished, because it was a massive, massive 3 points there for us against who was top of the table, Atalanta, flying high. I believe it was 12 wins in a row in league play. They were actually set to surpass Lazio's best streak, which came in the 2019-2020 season. And so it was nice. We snapped back, so we did stop them from winning. But there was so much there for the taking that just would have again changed a lot of the discussion around this squad, and would have been massive for our chances of top four. Not that it's not there, but it's just a huge statement win given what happened the last time we were at Stadio Olimpico against a big side, right? And so I think you're right when you say it's so much about the scoring the goals, because it changed. We've been in so many matches where we felt like we were the better team and we didn't come out with 3 points because another side was a little bit more clinical. When I look at the stats for this match, and this is maybe what's helped me kind of ease up a little bit in my emotions on this match, just being really, really upset. You're always going to be upset. Doesn't matter what the run of play says. When you're up 1-0 and it's the 80-something minute, you're kind of hoping and expecting to get out of it. But, the statistics for this, expected goals, 2.84 for Atalanta to Lazio's 0.62. Possession, 60% for Atalanta to Lazio's 40%. Total shots, Atalanta with 14, Lazio with 11. So not a big gap there. Total shots on target, Lazio with the edge, 5 to Atalanta's 4. Big chances, however. Big chances. Atalanta with 5 big chances to Lazio's 1. Lazio, according to FotMob, did not have any missed big chances, what they categorize as big chances. Atalanta, however, 4 big missed chances. So just kind of consuming that, sitting down, reflecting on where Atalanta is in their project versus where we are in this project, looking at the lineups, the health issues, who we had available, who we didn't have available, all of that in the context. My 3 words is a fair result. I think ultimately this was one that, of course, when you get to that late stages, but I thought it was fair. I thought it was more than fair given how Atalanta started coming in waves and just had the bodies to do it. And we started, of course, slowing down, where we saw a lot of our threats early on. Nuno was kind of back to being a little bit more dangerous in possession. He couldn't go the full 90. We don't have Pedro available. Dia still looks like he's kind of been unfit since his international duty. We know the midfield depth or lack thereof that we have, where we had to have Castrovilli thrown in there, and honestly, I didn't think that was a bad move positionally, but he's very clearly not a fit player. And so you kind of compile all of that, and you have to tip your hat to another valiant effort by Lazio to find a result in a match that, I would venture to say, I'm not a betting man, so I don't pay attention to it, but I would venture to guess that Atalanta were probably the favorites in this match.
Yeah, I want to add on to that too. I think it's also important to note, you mentioned that the team had 5 shots on target. For me, the most alarming thing in this match, and I think why it's a little deceptive as a Lazio fan, only one of those, we only had 1 shot in the box. 1 shot in the box all game. So we had a total of, I'm looking here, a total of 11 shots. And if you see the shot map, for those listening, and you can't, I don't have a visual to show you, but every 10 shots of those were outside the box. 3 of them were somewhat on the line, on the edge of the box. But then if you look at where the other 6 were, they were from way downtown. We're talking, 30 meters out, right? So I think that's why it's a little bit deceptive in terms of the chances we had that we didn't take advantage of. Is that okay? Yes, we had some opportunities, but at the same time, we had 1 shot in the box all game. You're not going to score more than 1 goal. It's a miracle we have 1 goal, right? Because in general, 1 shot in the box is not enough to score a goal in a game,
right? Which is why our XG was only 0.6 when you look at Atalanta and their shot chart. All but 1 of their shots were in the box.
Yeah, exactly. It's literally complete opposite. So I think that for those who feel like we were hard done this match, and the reality is, you can make a case to say that we were fortunate to come out with a point.
Yep. Yeah, and look, I've talked about, I actually quite admire, appreciate, and enjoy Lazio's willingness to take some cracks from distance. Because, 100%. I think we swung too far in the other direction in that third season under Sarri, where everything had to be that perfect shot, that you've got to be in the box. And I felt like, we were just easier to defend once you do that, once you get into that cycle. And so I do enjoy, and I think it does open a defense up. You saw Guendouzi, right? Just really close to scoring a goal, which would have been a brilliant goal from outside of the box. But I think it is probably a little bit deceptive to think, we did have a ton of chances, because we just didn't. And now, of course, the frustration comes in when we do have those chances. We are finding out that we just don't have very many players that can take advantage of those few chances, outside of maybe a Pedro, right? You see Pedro and it takes 1 chance and he finds a goal out of very little. But let's talk about player performances today, or sure. Maybe before we even go that, because this was a little bit of 2 different halves. What do you attribute this result the most to? Is it, I guess, was it individuals? Was it lack of depth? Was it simply as simple as missing a chance? Where do you kind of attribute the most of today's result to?
No, not so much individuals. I think that today, I know everyone's talking about the finishing, but for me today, I think it came down to playmaking. Was of those chances, we had 1 that was in the box, and it was on 1 versus 1, clear as day for Dele Bashiru. But if you look at Tati's goal, if you look at Diaz's shot, decent opportunities. It's not even the finishing. It's a lot of the decision making that comes before that. It's either a bad touch that comes before it, or in this case, I think that Shauna didn't really provide anything in the attack. I think that hurt us. That was kind of a non-existent presence over on that side. Zaccagni was okay, but also was not his. We've really been relying on Zaccagni for that playmaking ability, haven't we? And the way we set up our team today, it was three midfielders. We took out one attacker, brought in a midfielder. Dele Bashiru, while that was excellent for pressing and winning the ball and winning the duels, which we did excellent today. In terms of creating, we weren't really doing much. Tati really was our sole creator. And when your striker is the creator, that's a problem. That's a big problem. I think about that, these passes, the touches that he sets up for other passes in the game. Like, when Ravella makes that amazing one-touch pass to Bashiru, Tati's dropping down to mid. He's at the halfway line of the field, basically, at that point. He's dropping down, getting that touch, beating the guy, and then that happens, right? Tati also had this lovely ball over to Dia on the cross. Just couldn't put it away. So I think it comes down to, okay, Tati right now was our sole creator this match. The wingers alongside him weren't doing much. Bashiru had a great goal, but wasn't really creating much. It might come down to we need more from behind the striker. And some people think the solution is, hey, put Tati back there because look what he's doing already at the striker position. So yes, a bit of it is individuals. They're just not creating the chances they need to create. But it's tough because I do think we sacrificed a little bit of playmaking today so that we could win those duels. I think that the way we were set up today was more so with the mindset of how can we go toe to toe with Atalanta, who is the beast physical team, in man on man. We do man to man, right? Who's going to come up on top? But only set us up well in order to combat that. But I think it cost us a bit on the offensive side. Because it was a really physical game, and you're going to sacrifice like guys like Zaccagni, while they're amazing on the ball and they're amazing because they drop back. It hurts him on the attack. Lookman doesn't have to do that.
No, absolutely. You think about we talk about Rovella, right? When people want to say, oh, okay, you want more in attack. Everybody says that they want. Oh, we want to see Rovella. Where are the goals? Where are the assists? Where this? I mean, do you see the work rate? I mean, you can't physically. You're not going to be. First of all, if he is playing in advanced positions, we're toast. We're done. I mean, we get caught on one break because Guendouzi's already playing in advanced positions. Zaccagni, whose work rate defensively is pretty strong. Like he tracks back.
Oh my gosh!
It's tough for them. You often see like he'll play in these bursts because he just can't physically continue to press on. And we are a team that presses. You do have Nuno making a lot of those runs, and we've got to be as a unit willing to sacrifice that Nuno defensively is not going to have it all the time. Like there are times when you kind of wish he'd maybe get his head out of his ass, when it comes to some of the turnovers and then running back. But it's tough because he's making some insane runs. So there is a physical demand that comes from this system, and I'm not sure we are quite built as a squad with the depth to sustain this for long portion of the season if we don't have more bodies come in.
Yeah, and to add on that, I think today's a really great example of that because when our guys are all fit and we have fresh legs and we're playing our way, we can really suffocate teams, right? The difference is Atalanta, we're bringing in top. What would we consider starters in this league off the bench? Cuadrado, yeah, he's a little older, but that man was a starting wing back in this league for a long time. And you saw the quality of delivery that he was putting on. He was putting dimes over and over and over again. That's the kind of quality that they have coming off the bench. And there's many other examples of that. And I think that's frankly what happened today. That's why I don't think we should be so – it sucks, but we could be proud of it because the reality is what we have to face and what we've been talking about as we're coming through this difficult month, of these top games is look at all the quality. And we talk about Inter. Look at all the quality Inter brought off the bench. We are just not able to compete right now. And keep in mind, yes, Atalanta doesn't doesn't spend as much as the teams, but they've been spending pretty good amounts as of late. They are getting a little more audacious in their spending, and it's a program and it's a team that's been built over the course of the last 4 years,
Yep.
right? We're not there. That's reality. But when we were equals in the first half, when everyone was the same, when depth isn't really a factor, we're right there, and if not the better side, right? It's just the second half is tough to keep that going for full 90 minutes against a team like Atalanta.
Yep. And again, I think Baroni did well to set us up.
He did.
Because at some point, the players have to do their part. So again, we start to see where the match starts to shift. The tired legs come in. Atalanta can start dominating a little bit more, but we still have a chance or two that if individuals do their part, we're talking about a very different result here. So let's talk about those players, and we'll start as we always do with the pros. Give me your man of the match for this one.
I think there may be like around 3 candidates in my opinion. I think my shots I just want to say before I give the one person my man of the match here is I think Rebella, very clear as one of the favorites here. I think Tati had a really good game. I thought he was the best attacker today. And I thought our center back duos, maybe 4. I think our center back duo was incredibly solid today. Both Gila and Romagnoli were getting to everything. And the goal that we conceded had nothing to do with them. They were rock solid today. I love giving credit to Romagnoli when I can. Like, it's no coincidence he comes back and we look so much more sound. We don't collapse. But my man of the match, I think Rovella has to be the choice here, in my opinion. Man, was brilliant today. Made so many tackles. One thing that makes me mad about the commentators and on Paramount at times is they're all like surprised, like, oh, Rovella, now he's added this engine to his game. It's like, bro, where have you not been watching Lazio for the past year and a half? And even before then, Rovella still had that engine. That's always been a key principle. Like, if anything, you can expect this engine to be there. Like, this is just something that's so synonymous to him. And I was hearing the announcer today talk about, oh, now he's become a complete player. He's adding sort of this engine to my what?
Yeah, even not the engine. I tweeted this a little bit like in subtweet of just being like, this is like a typical Rovella pass. This isn't like a shocking thing. I think everybody is, and I said this on the last podcast, and I know you at least heard the sound bites, but it takes things like today where it leads directly to a goal and it's an assist for everybody to see a highlight and then be like, ooh, Rovella, right? And we're just like, what are you talking? Now you're going to give him his flowers when he making that beautiful ball that then leads to the pass before an assist is just as critical. Or again, just because we so often find ourselves in moments where guys don't finish, that doesn't make his pass any less brilliant.
Right.
Today, it just happened to be a fantastic finish by Dele Bashiru that allowed for that assist. And so, it's just, So
I mean, I think we both can probably agree that Rovella is the man of the match. Who would you want to give a special shout out to, though, this match?
Yeah, so Rovella was my man of the match. And then my 2 others were Gila and Tati. Same. I thought, and again, I'm also repeating myself because I said the same thing last week about Gila and our center back pairing. Gila, when I'm in this match, just like last week, I'm going to give Gila the shout out because what he did was very obvious and you see it, and he's so dynamic, and his blistering runs and all these fun things that make him very, very intriguing to Real Madrid and so many others around the world. You watch this match and immediately you see him and you go, this guy's world class. Like, he's got to be a player that's going to, take those steps because of, his pace and his ability to dribble and yada, 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 yada. He could only do that because of Romagnoli. And Romagnoli just keeps so much intact. And Romagnoli was fantastic today. So, I want to shout out, of course, Gila is the one out there doing it. But I think Romagnoli again is just that
Mhm.
anchor, and I thought he just played really, really well. And that goal that we conceded, I was having I just like shot a tweet at our good friend Stephen K. Moore with the Laziali, a noted Marusic hater, but he was kind of blaming Marusic for that goal, because he didn't think he checked his back shoulder, and just like reviewing those replays, I thought I didn't think anybody was necessarily to blame on that goal. It's both a combination of just like really, really nice ball and also unlucky that it gets through, because
Mm,
Marusic, like positionally, he's in a really good position and
I
he's
agree.
looking at the play, and the ball gets through like this in a half split second, where he's got to make, he's the one that has to make the turn. Lookman doesn't. Lookman is
Yeah.
right there. A player as pacey as Lookman on top of that, Marusic has no chance to do anything in that situation.
Well,
What
even
do you think?
it was even off it was off his Saxon's shoulder where it
Right.
happened, right? There's literally nothing Matic could have done there. Again, it was such a bizarre ball because in general, no one expects that to get through.
Yep.
Like it was just like Zaniolo just kind of just lashed at it because it was this awkward bounce. Like when Doozy hit off across, as Zaniolo's just trying to get a touch to it. It happens to be a world class looking touch,
It starts off a
intentional.
deflection, right? Like Pellegrini, I think, kind of gets something on it, and it deflects its way into this
Well, yeah,
mess of a.
what's actually is like, well, Pellegrini tries to clear it. They put it back. When Doozy heads it off, he gets a little glance to it and lands in Zaniolo. It's up in the air. Zaniolo just kind of like twists around. I think he tries to kind of maybe half volley it.
Yep.
Basically, it just falls perfectly to an oncoming Lookman. Again, I don't think many people are to blame there. That it's one of those balls where it just it takes the whole defense off. The whole defense was completely taken out of that play, and at that point, it just becomes can Provedel come up with a miracle,
Yeah,
right?
and with two players right there, I mean,
Which is
Provedel has
yeah.
nothing to do, right? I in that situation, Provedel is probably just hoping Lookman takes a shot and
And
does
I want
something stupid.
to 100%. And I want to add too. I thought Marusic had a really good game, and Lookman was largely invisible the whole match because of Marusic. Marusic was locking that man up. Um, and again, we talked earlier. Lookman doesn't has the luxury of being able to 100% focus on his attacking, right?
Yep.
They play this 3-5-2. Lookman is solely an attacker. He doesn't run back, he doesn't track back. He's solely focused on running. So, it's late in the game. While someone like Tati is a gassed because he's dropping down the midfield, Lookman is fresh as can be because he just sits up top all day, right? So, anyways, it's good composure from Lookman. Unfortunate. I don't think you can really blame anyone there.
Yeah.
But
No,
I will
absolutely.
say this. One thing that I even considered it making my 3 words, but one thing I want to see this team do better is control matches in the last quarter of the game. Because we get the ball and I love the heavy, hey, let's push, heavy transition team. Let's get numbers forward. Let's try and score. But when you're in the 80th minute, like I think right before the goal, we had this counter and it was like we were pushing hard. We were bringing numbers, great, fun. But at that point, I would love to see us just like, okay, hey, let's just recycle play. Nothing's there. Saxon tries to force a pass into the box. Hey, in that situation, I would love, and this isn't just Saxon. In general, our team's really aggressive with this kind of this mentality that Badoni's instilled, which is a good thing. But at this stage of the game, I would love to see the team to be a little bit more passive. Just, hey, if you try that initial counter, it doesn't work out, understand the situation, recycle it, and let's hold on to the ball a little bit. We were letting Atalanta have the ball way too much and way too easily.
Yep.
I would love for us to learn to control games better because that's cost us not just in this game, it's cost us throughout the season. Our ability to just control and slow games down.
I 1000% agree, which is also why I messaged you when he made the substitution of Castrovilli, because I actually thought, again, just positionally, I thought it was an indication that we were going to try and control possession, bring on somebody else that is strong in possession, an extra midfielder. We don't need Tati at that point to give us that attacking player up top. And we did the complete opposite. We didn't keep a second of possession. We were defending like fairly well, but it was one of those classic Las Verona, like, low block, hang on for dear life and try and cut anything out. And again, we almost did it, if not for a very unlucky ball that gets through. But again, Atalanta was coming in waves, so all the credit to them. But yeah, I thought we were going to go that route today, where we can maintain possession, and I think given how we play for so long, we have to get better at maintaining possession because we don't have legs to chase
And
the ball.
it's frustrating too because maybe in different years and stuff, we have the technical ability to do so. We have a lot of technical players on this team. We can hold on to the ball. Like it isn't like Baroni. Yes, with the Hellas Verona, you don't have that ability. That quality on the ball, that technical ability, the vision, the anticipation. We have the ability to like Baroni now is a team that has the ability to do so. I'm not sure if it's just the players are this way or Baroni just is very insistent on sort of this push approach. But I would love for us to take advantage of that. And you bring in a Castrovilli, okay, this man is not built for transitions. He you have to be careful. He runs 30 yards without, snapping his knee. Like, let's just chill out a little bit. And I love that to start the game. I love that, when we're pushing to get a goal, but when you have the lead, we're capable of holding onto the ball and playing some sidey ball and just pass that thing around back and forth from left to right. Right. Like,
Yep.
I'm perfectly fine with that. I think that's going to help the team drastic, especially when you don't have depth.
Yeah.
You have to do this.
And we just don't have depth. And, it's not just like we've talked about this side. We've talked about Lazio squads in the past, and it's like we don't have depth. And generally, when we say we don't have depth, we're talking like quality of players to compete on multiple fronts.
Right.
This year, when we say we don't have depth, we mean that we literally had one unused outfield player left. That, like, sitting on the bench, and that's Gigot. He was the only outfield player. We had two other keepers, but we had gone through all of our subs with a lone man sitting there in our squad. We quite literally have no depth. We do not have enough players. This this club that we follow sometimes does these things that you just scratch your head for any professional football club in this sport, in and around any league in the world. We were a Champions League team that only had one striker on the roster years ago. We were like, what are we doing? How are we playing Champions League football and we only have one striker? And it was like only Lazio. And now we are a professional team that does not have enough players playing in 3 competitions still, which is just absolutely nuts. I digress though. Give me your bidone for this one, because I had one, and Patrick Bowman, great listener on YouTube comments. He thought there wasn't anybody that was really bad. But I mostly agree, but I did think that there was a standout bidone contender, but I want to hear yours first.
Mine was Shauna, personally. He's a weird one, man. I know he's young, but the clearances today, part of the reason why they had so many big chances is because he couldn't clear his line. And what really, I couldn't believe it. And it's literally right before he got subbed out. He was just barely inside the box on the defensive side off a set piece, tries to mega player in his own box. And I got to get this man out of here right now. Like, come on. You're up 1-0. The game's closing, and you're trying to meg the player in your own box? Come on. I understand being young and all, but this is just very simple one-on-one stuff. I thought he was largely ineffective in the attack. I actually can't think of one good moment he had in the attack.
I'll give him his one moment.
Okay.
I do want to be fair. He did have one moment, and that was that 11th minute mark. It was his run and through ball to Tati that led to the 2 saves that kind of had.
Well,
But
he had a good one too. He had another good one too, actually. I don't know. I don't remember the build up, but I think it was actually Tati to him, and then he had his little intricate little touches to completely bypass his guy and was able to square up and curl a shot at a pretty good angle outside the box. Completely shanked it. But yeah, I just thought he had a bad game offensively, and at the bare minimum, you expect someone to be good defensively. He was getting back to his credit. However, man, those clearances were tough. He had some bad touches. I thought when Isaacson came in, I thought Isaacson was already like, okay, this is already better. We feel better, but that right wing position is still a really big question mark for us. Really big.
Yeah. Chauuna was my beat on it. All the reasons that you said. Again, that 61st minute was beyond egregious. He had already had a ton of whiff clearances, and in the 61st minute, he gets very fortunate because it's a whiff clearance, but he keeps possession. It was like, oh, okay, at least this time somehow he whiffs it,
right?
He keeps it. So you're like, God, man, just at this point, there's nobody in front of you. You have 2 seconds, but then he looks to take a man on and again attempts the nutmeg, and it was just it sign, seal, deliver. Bidone. Yeah. We were fortunate to get out of there. It was almost like he was throwing the match.
I couldn't believe it.
But yeah, it was a whole run of poor touches. Those clearances throughout the match were a problem. But I say all that and say, but he had that one early opportunity. Very, very young player. We know, you want to get. I just want to caution everybody. Still give him time. He does have a ton of confidence. I love his willingness to take guys on and have a crack at it. He's going to find the back of the net just because, again, I think he's not one that loses his confidence, but he just has to be a little bit smarter in those situations. And I actually, because we talked about this in last week's episode, that I actually liked that Chauuna started because I wanted to see a player like Isaacson, explosive. Last year, he proved he can be impactful off the bench, and we have so little off the bench, especially without having Pedro. I kind of liked having that in our back pocket to get through and then throw a player like Isaacson against tired legs. I thought Baroni got it right in terms of his thought process, but the players let him down. Again, I thought tactically everything is from on my point of view, I'm giving him a thumbs up in almost everything that he did in his part, and it just came down to players letting him down in moments, or again, a Chauuna really just didn't do well. But I thought the idea of taking his Isaacson off the bench for a match like this was a good thought.
Yeah, and I kind of want to actually talk about this. I think right now because going into the new year, we had a really clear idea of who our kind of starting 11 was. I think it's starting to change a little bit. I'm not sure if you feel the same way because we've had guys like Dia struggling. If I got Dele Bashiru, who has been performing really well for us, contributing to goals. Or do you predict or do you want to see sort of a more permanent change at the starting 11? Do you think we need to keep resorting to the Dia Tati duo? What's kind of your thought process on that front going to the new year?
Yeah, I think unfortunately I don't know that Baroni has a ton of options. So I think some of these changes, because you're right, like a match like today, Serie A, we kind of fell into this nice groove where we knew who was going to play in Europa, who was going to play in Serie A. Now a little bit of a break for Europa, and so okay, maybe we'll see him tweak. But it's hard for me to sit here and say this is what Baroni wants to do, because I see it as more this is what Baroni has to do. He just doesn't have players off the bench. So in a match like today, I see Chauuna in there, and I don't see that necessarily as a knock to Isaacson and wanting to give Chauuna a chance. I just see it as like he needs somebody off the bench that's going to make an impact. So Isaacson has to come off of the bench, and there's obviously some tactics to going in a 4-3-3 versus his traditional 4-2-3-1, but I don't know. I think if in a perfect world, if everybody is healthy, and we come back I think I would still go to what was working. I liked the 4-2-3-1. I think it gives us just a smidge more balance because we see more in the attack. I don't like seeing Tati without any support. I think it is unfair to him because he does do a lot of things really, really well. And maybe he's another player that, it's like the just physically it's hard to score goals if you're doing so many other things. And I don't know. I kind of want to see the 4-2-3-1, and I'd like to see Dia sit back there. It was a thing of beauty. He's just not fit. He came back from international duty, and something's off with him. Just as Nuno, had a knock in international duty and hasn't quite been the same. So yeah, I don't know. That's my answer. I'd like to see us keep trucking with what was working, and then give those guys like Dele Bashiru those opportunities that he's absolutely earned.
Yeah, I mean, I asked that just because I mean I've personally been loving having Dele Bashiru on the field as of late. I think we're just a better team with him on the field, and I think I think we miss out on a lot by not starting him just because he is such a two-way player who has come up with goals. And I think can only get better. I think this is still just him getting into a groove. I think we
But do
can
you
see
do that in sacrifice of having, like,
I
where do you play him?
I well I believe he can play that Dia role. Because today we were set up him as sort of as an eight. We had two
Yep.
eights today, right? With Ravella sitting behind
Yep.
Guendouzi. I want to see Delabate. This is what he was brought in as an attacking midfielder, sort of attacking midfielder, second striker. Like that's kind of where he likes to play the best. But he's done an excellent job of adapting to the defensive side of the game. I mean, I think a lot of questions were asked. Can Bashiru even play this box to box midfielder? Can he play in a pivot? He's proven he can, and maybe his best position is there long term. But for me, I like the 4-2-3-1 as well. But I would love to keep running the hot, I would love to keep running the hot hand, which is Dele Bashiru, and I would love to see him running behind Tati. Right, Tati's dropping back. Have Dele Bashiru running in behind to get those right. Dia and Dele Bashiru have very similar profiles in terms of they're these sort of like pretty pretty tall, physical but technical players who have some pace. I do think Dele Bashiru is a little more technical and more capable of the link up and the playmaking part of the game. So for me, if you're playing a 4-2-3-1, technically that person behind the striker should be some sort of attacking midfield. We're playing sort of the second striker right now, and I think he can play that. And I think we could actually see we can get even more out of him in that role. So I like running the hot hand. For me, I think the worst thing you can do is get someone that's confident, balling out consistently, and then you're saying, okay, we'll use you like in a secondary competition. Whoa, like
Yeah,
let's
I
put
wouldn't
Dia in the
relegate. I don't
secondary
mean it
competition.
relegating him to a secondary competition. I do think, whether that is playing him off the bench or rotating. Rovella and Genduzi need a break, and so I am completely confident in swapping those guys out. I also just want to caution this, like any notion of moving off of Dia, like just
Oh yeah.
remembering that he worked, like he to start the season. We were talking about him as the signing of the season, and
Yeah.
so a bit of out of form doesn't necessarily mean like he's completely lost it. I
No,
just want
no,
to still
and
see that place for him.
I don't mean that. I'm saying, okay, hey, totally get, Dia when he was at his best was a baller for crushing it. My thing is, hey, in league games, let's run with Dele Bashiru. Just like we did. Dele Bashiru struggled the second game he played for us. He was then, okay, we're gonna give you a time in Europe. Gonna need plenty of minutes there. Got a ton of minutes. Guess what? He's in a groove now. He's feeling it. I think we could do something similar to Dia, which is, hey, you can come off the bench in these league games, but hey, you're going to get that starting role in the Europa game against Real Sociedad, which is still a big game. That's a
Yeah.
good opponent, right? And we just run Tati into the ground until he can't move anymore.
I mean, yeah. I mean that's probably my fear is that I just before moving him into a position where we at least have a couple guys, it's going to come down to a January window to get some help, but Yeah, quick look at the table here as we get set to close out. Lazio, having played their 18th match of the Serie A campaign, sees himself in fourth. Fiorentina right behind us. However, Fiorentina 2 matches in hand. Juve has to play their match as well. But Lazio 35 points, Napoli ahead at 38, yet to play their match. Inter at 40, Atalanta still top of the table at 41. So we see ourselves in a fine position, a position that we obviously did not predict, neither one of us, and so we have to be positive about that, knowing we've got a big window with some important matches ahead of us.
And I want to add really quick to that
Yeah,
fun fact. I just for fun, I looked up to see the expected points, meaning expected goals against, expected goals. What would that table look like? We would be sitting in third right now, based off that. And it seems that the main factor here is we've actually been quite unfortunate on goals against, meaning we were expected to concede around 19 goals, but we've actually conceded 24 goals.
Yeah, well, I've brought it up many times when we look at the XGs, particularly defensively, we've been really, really good. We often feel great about how that usually looks, and that's where today I really am like, well, it's kind of a fair. This was one of the few matches where we were completely outperformed. If
Pretty
you're
much,
looking
yeah.
at some of those key metrics, and just the eye test too. Again, Atalanta, had we had more time in stoppage time, we would have really found ourselves in some problems. But yeah, so I think we can feel good. It's top of the table, right? They're top of the table, and we managed to hold them and really put ourselves in positions to walk away with 3 points. We just conceded a very unfortunate goal, and so now we've got the derby ahead, which never takes form into account. It doesn't matter where your position is in the table, whether you are fighting for relegation like Roma or fighting for Champions League like your Biancocelesti. It is always sempre Forza Lazio.